Hello, welcome to Canada CPA Online Academy, sharing the wisdom. Welcome back. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, last week on LinkedIn, I did a poll requesting you to rate what is your topmost concern, and most of you have voted as depth. Day two role depth is the topmost concern that it is difficult to achieve. So today I'm going to share some tips on how to achieve that depth in your role. What are some easy things that you could do? How to practice to achieve that depth, and we'll see some of those. Just a sec. Okay. So yeah. So today's topic: depth in your role. How to achieve depth for day two. Now, remember that day two is the only day where you can achieve the depth for your role specific AOs. That is like for other levels, you can easily make a mix with day three. Like you can score the breadth, sufficiency, everything, all other levels on day three as well. But for role two, for your role depth, day two is your only chance. So pay attention that you are able to score that level on day two. Now, uh, first first tip is that focus on the repetitive AOs. Now, if you see for day two, now I'm talking about assurance role. If you see, there would be some AOs that are repeated, like audit risk, audit materiality, the audit planning memo, approach, audit procedures, and internal control. These five, you will see that they keep repeating in every day two scenario. Now there would be some nuances, some things would be changed, sometimes the memo is asked just to revise, sometimes it's asked from internal audit perspective. There will be some changes related to that, but you will always find these AOs repeatedly. Now I'm talking for assurance role, but similarly for even if you have performance management or taxation, there are some AOs that keep repeating in every year's day two case. So focus on those AOs, how you would be able to achieve C. Now, if you have solved some day two cases and got it marked, then debrief those AOs and understand whether you were able to score C or not. If not, why? What is the gap? Check the feedback guide, check what is expected, and then analyze the gap why you are not able to score C on those AOs. Once you have a control or handle on these five AOs, it becomes easier to handle the rest of it. So even if you score RC on the other AOs, you're comfortable. Um, then the next thing is I have made specific videos on these through audit risk, materiality, and approach. There are specific videos how to score C or CD in these three AOs. So please check those videos. I'll put a link down in the description to find it easily. And I'll be making some videos on audit procedures and internal control, what is expected for that. But the important fact here is focus on those repetitive AOs and debrief after getting your cases marked for day two. Now, if you see CFE Board Report, now this is, I'm referring the recent one, September 2020 CFE Board Report. So if you see what the board is saying is um, that candidates spend an inordinate amount of time on common AOs in day two to the detriment of the role AOs. This was likely due to partly candidates were spending excessive time on quantitative management accounting AOs, failing to balance and manage their time per AO properly. Now, this is a very common problem that MA, due to quant heavy and qualitative aspect, it takes so much time. Like there was one AO in September 2020 day two. There was, you were supposed to calculate the current cost with airport, without airport, uh, and what would be the bid amount. And it was such a lengthy calculation, and there were a lot of qualitative aspects as well. So if you have spent more than your allotted time for that MA. Usually you get say 15 to 17 minutes on a day two for per AO. if you have spent anything more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes on one specific AO, that means you are not giving sufficient time for the other AOs, and that is going to affect your role. So please make sure that you are allotting the proper time to all the AOs, and you are able to balance that time and move on to the next AO. Don't get trapped into that AO, so that the balance remains the same. Now, how I used to do is, the first 1 hour for reading, then uh, I used to start with my role specific AOs. Now, some people would advise you to start with FR. Some would say with, so it's your, have a fixed strategy, and experiment with that strategy, and then make a plan how you're going to attack the day two. I used to start with my role AOs. I would write first hour uh, of like three to four AOs for assurance, then move on to FR, bring in the adjustment journal entries in the materiality and that AO, and then finish the rest of the FR, and then the remaining AOs for the assurance. That was my plan. It helped me to capture those first four assurance AOs to sufficient depth to score that role specific depth on in the initial time, where there is less time pressure, because at the end the time pressure is more. So if you keep your role specific AOs at the end, everything at the end, then you're going to run out of the time. So manage it wisely to make best possible utilization of your time. So time management, like day 1, 2, 3, always, every day, every AO, time management is always your top priority. Balance your time between FRMA and your role AOs. Then balance your time between the quant and the qualitative analysis. Equally, there is a spelling mistake on the quant. That's why I'm focusing that. Sorry. Then the practice the repetitive AOs, so that you are able to write them in the shortest amount of time. And once the in your head, it is very clear what you are supposed to write for risk. What is the risk case fact? Why it is a risk, conclusion, whether it increases the risk, decreases the risk. When the sentences and when the strategy is very clear in your mind, it comes faster. You don't have to think about what to write, and then it will save you the time for to attempt the other challenging or difficult AOs. It will give you more time for that. Next thing, some common mistakes on day 2, you would see that for FR, copying the text from the handbook and writing just the met or not met for the condition without explaining or linking to case facts is the very common mistake, especially if you're starting to practice the cases just now. This is a very common mistake that I find again and again while marking the cases, that um, like take an example. This is a foreign currency AO, and so foreign currency definition is given. First condition is buys or sells the goods services whose price is denominated in the foreign currency, and met. Students stop here and then move on to the next condition, but that is not expected. What is expected? Explain why it is met. We know that you have copied the correct criteria, but what is the thinking line? CPA wants to know why you have copied the thing and how it applies to the case. So always remember to write, like say Elcar has incurred trade payables in USD, so this condition is met. So this first, okay, there is a transaction, and how you are linking that to your um, case. So that is a very important element, that don't just copy from the handbook, write it why how it matters. So there is a very specific pattern that you have to follow throughout, whether it is day 1, day 2, day 3, all 3 days you have to follow the very specific pattern of writing the cases. That is case fact, write the case fact. Second, why. So what is this case fact? What is the impact of this fact? What is happening because of this fact? And so what? So what happens because of that? Is it affecting the risk? Is it affecting the materiality, and so on? I've given one example. See that there is a fact, controller has left in November. So that is the fact. Why? What happens because of that fact? Why does it matter? It weakens the internal controls because the controller has left. There is no one to supervise and things like that. So that why it weakens the internal controls. So what? So it increases the audit risk. So when you have these, and it does not have to be lengthy. Remember that, like, just by writing more paras, you're not going to get anything. Only these 3 sentences and your answer is perfect with this. So the in very, like, it keeps on coming again and again in the Board of Examiners report as well, that importance of answering the questions why and so what. It is very important. Repeating the case facts without any explanation, even if it is in logical format, such as a list of pros, cons, insufficient. Write it. Why is it a pro? If you're writing that this is a pro, explain why, how it helps the company. If it is a con, why it is a con. So uh, fact, why, so what. If you follow everything in these three format, then you are good. They want to understand the logic. What is your thinking, and how you are applying that thinking. They want to see in your answer. Next point. Now you will say that this is, I'm saying something contradictory, but no, remember that when I'm saying that focus on the repetitive AOs, I'm not saying that skip the difficult AOs. Do not skip the difficult AOs or the challenging AOs. There are a couple of points here. Now, this is again extract from Board of Examiners report. See what the board is saying. BOE consciously includes more challenging and unique topics such as convertible debt. It was asked September 2020. What they want to see is how the candidates demonstrate their ability to draw on the first principles and use their judgment to work through an issue perhaps they have never seen before. Now see what they're saying, to draw on first principles, and how, what is your ability to handle the new challenging difficult issues. That is very critical because as an CPA you go through so many challenges, so many different issues. The standards keep revising, the industry keeps changing, the clientele keeps changing, and so there are so many combinations that you have to think on. You have to be on your feet in that thinking. So they want to understand or assess how quick you are to, are you able to go to the correct standard and pick at least the extract? Are you able to give a thought? What is your thought process? Now, I don't remember the name of the case, but there was one AO about an artifact and like the treatment. How would you treat that artifact? Now, there was not much guidance given, or there is not, like, no ASPE or IFRS specifically states how to treat that. So what they are like, when you how we think, they just want to understand that. So an artifact, what you're thinking, is it a fixed asset, is it a current asset, is it would it be an inventory, is it a or is it a just a short-term investment? What are your thinking lines? So you should be trying to apply the case facts to identify, uh, can it be treated as a fixed asset? Yes or no? What are the conditions? What is the definition? Can it be treated as a short-term investment? What is the purpose? How are they treating it? Is it their inventory? Is it their, are they doing? So you were supposed to just do that thought process. There was not any conclusive answer for that AO as such, but what they were trying to assess was just this thinking line, whether are you able to go to the different sections and give it a thought about how, about the treatment, and then conclude on one treatment. So this is what they're trying to analyze. So do not skip these AOs. Now for these AOs, the level of difficulty, like the core competency from the competency map, if you see, usually for assurance role, FR is at A level. But for these AOs, the expectation level is at B or sometimes even at C. So it is not that difficult as it seems. There is not much complex quant is required. What is required is to keep calm and to handle that AO to the best of your ability. So focus on that don't panic, and remember that you will be solving the most repetitive AOs to the like in a great extent, but you should be able to attempt these difficult AOs to the best of your ability. So keep your calm and just write whatever you can think of, and whatever you could find in that limited time. So that is what they're trying to see. Now see here, for non-routine AOs, the core map, see this is for non-routine transactions, it is listed as B. So it's not, they're not expecting a very high detailed answer or treatment for those type of AOs. Then here is another comment from the report that see, some candidates tried to insert discussions that were not relevant to the case. Many of these discussions appear to come from previous CPs, suggesting that the candidates are trying to fit the answers from practice exams to the current year exams. I recently did a video on recency bias. Do check that video as well. There I'm talking about the same principle, that what happens, what is the recency bias is, our human brain goes to the most recent problem or situation that we have handled. So all these cases are for the practice purpose, but CPA always builds the case such as, even if the AO or that IFRS or ASPE is same, still there is a different angle, a different perspective that you need to consider to attempt that. So even if it looks similar to the previous case, don't immediately assume, have that fresh, don't assume that it is the same AO, and don't start writing based on your previous answers. So think, have that fresh eyes to look at the required, understand what they are trying to judge from this AO, and then write your answer. Don't try to blankly copy from the cases. So I think that's it for today, and hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the question, and I'll try to answer those questions. And keep practicing day 2, and debriefing is the most important aspect of learning. I would say that when you debrief and when you try to compare with feedback guides and then understand what is missing, that is going to give you more learning. So spend your time in debriefing the cases from your marked responses, and then that knowledge applied to the next case when you're writing for the day 2, and that would be helpful. And as always, please like, share, subscribe this video, share it with your friends, and all the best for your CFE prep.